Nvwadalehi. We welcome you this morning here to our morning worship here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. We are coming today because we've been thinking about whether or not you've heard the call of wisdom woman. And so as you think about that, let's open our Hebrew Bibles to Proverbs 1:20 through 33. And we'll do some reading here. Uh-oh, somebody forgot to turn the cell phone off. Let's see here. Turn mine off too. All right. Wisdom cries out in the street. In the square she raises her voice. At the busiest corner she cries out. At the entrance of the city gates she speaks. How long, O simple ones, will you love being simple? How long will scoffers delight in their scoffing, and fools hate knowledge? Give heed to my reproof. I will pour out my thoughts to you. I will make my words known to you. Because I have called and you refuse, have stretched out my hand and no one heeded. And because you have ignored all my counsel and would have none of my reproof, I also will laugh at your calamity. I will mock when panic strikes you. When panic strikes you like a storm, and your calamity comes like a whirlwind, when distress and anguish come upon you, then you will call upon me, but I will not answer. They will seek me diligently, but will not find me, because they hated knowledge and did not choose the fear of God, would have none of my counsel and despised all my reproof. Therefore, they shall eat the fruit of their way and be sated with their own devices. For waywardness kills the simple, and the complacency of fools destroys them. But those who listen to me will be secure and will live at ease without dread of disaster. Walking the wrong road. That's what we're thinking about this morning as we turn to our reading in the New Testament. We're going to go to Nvwadalehi 8:27 through 38. I got lots of papers this morning because I got a lot to talk about today. So this is one of those days I might get a little long-winded, so just kind of settle yourself with that. Let's see. I'm going to keep this short, and instead of reading the whole thing, I'm just going to read 37 and 38 because it's pretty long, and what's really a big important part of this text. I'll read it fully in English, but in Cherokee I'm just going to read a little short from 37 and 38. Ale, Gado, Yahaga, Yahweh, Yiga, Netli, Yazda, Uda, Nado, Giloyeno, Aquade, Osgiz, Di, Aya, Ale, Aya, Gini, Yain, Udasu, Ya, Ani, Dinadoa, Yonihi, Ale, Anizya, Na, Ane, Hain, Nazgi, Nazpo, Nowi, Uweji, Udeho, Izdi, Gesizdi, Galu, Jaha, Unu, Wosdi, Gala, Wodiyan, Gesan, Udoda, Ujeliga, Ane, Esdi, Gejilan Wodi, Dinika, Wadido, He. And in English, the full reading is from Mark 8:27 through 38. Jesus went on with his disciples to the villages of Caesarea Philippi, and on the way he asked his disciples, "Who do the people say that I am?" And they answered him, "John the Baptist, and others Elijah, and still others one of the prophets." He asked them, "But who do you say that I am?" Peter answered him, "You are the Messiah." And he sternly ordered them not to tell anyone about it. Then he began to teach them that the Son of Man must undergo great suffering and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the scribes, and be killed, and after 3 days rise again. He said all this quite openly. And Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. But turning and looking at his disciples, he rebuked Peter and said, "Get behind me, Satan." Or as they actually say in Hebrew, Satan. For you are setting your mind not on divine things, but on human things. He called the crowd with his disciples and said to them, "If you want to become my followers, let them deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For those who want to save their life will lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake and for the sake of the gospel will save it. For what will it profit them to gain the whole world and forfeit their life? Indeed, what can they give in return for their life? Those who are ashamed of me and of my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, of them the Son of Man will also be ashamed when he comes in the glory of God with the holy angels." Hear the words of the Gospel of Mark. Wisdom woman actually applies not only to Proverbs, but also in our Indian religious tradition. Wisdom woman is a very strong and powerful name among the people. Talks about walking a road, being in harmony, and being of good service, which we talk a lot about service and harmony, which is good. Repetition and reinforcement is important. But it's also a road that a lot of people, even those in positions of power and authority, seem to turn aside from, to walk a different road. And I know you've heard this poem many times by Robert Frost, but it's worth hearing again. The road not taken. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood. And sorry I could not travel both. And be one traveler, long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for the passing there, had worn them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay, in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence, two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. What is God's wisdom? Well, Miss Kathleen M. O'Connor in Feasting on the Word has a few thoughts about that. And it's interesting right out from the start that wisdom is actually referred to as a woman. And that makes a lot of sense when you think about it, because women do spend more time paying attention to the long-term consequences of their actions, for the most part. And in so doing, have the opportunity to consider the road that they're taking and how that's going to impact their children, themselves, their families. Women are the caregivers. They raise children, they take care of them, and they have to think about these things, while unfortunately many men do not. Now, within our Native American tradition, there are certain philosophies that men live by and are compelled to live by, and it'd be nice if more Indian men did live by them, that do include paying attention to wisdom woman and thinking about the consequences of our actions. But in this sense, wisdom woman is talking about the two roads that Robert Frost wrote about. One being the road of basically following your own impulse, following your own agenda, and ignoring knowledge, ignoring the potential consequences, setting aside all those things that would make your life in the greater scheme of things and the lives of others better all around. Wisdom woman is saying in this reading today, she's really challenging those who have ignored her call, who have heeded or failed to heed her expression of God's interpretation of wisdom. Well, what is God's wisdom? That's a darn good question. One that I don't think very many of us actually ask. Because you never really think about God in the terms of being a wise person, being a wise individual. And, but yet, we know instinctively that all wisdom comes from God. So we assume, or unfortunately many people assume, that they've got the wisdom with the package. Salvation's supposed to include wisdom, right? Yeah, I don't think so. Wisdom woman saying here, you gotta learn, you gotta reach out, you gotta study, you gotta find out what wisdom really is. Because most Americans, and especially across the world as a whole, think of wisdom being equal to progress. That progress is good wisdom. Well, I think there are some that might disagree with that. And I'm certainly one of them. Because progress for the sake of progress has caused a lot of problems. And that, if, now I know that there are two things you're not supposed to talk about amongst any other decent human being, and that is religion and politics. Well, we're definitely talking about religion this morning, so why not jump over the bridge and talk politics? Because that's what I'm going to do. There's a lot going on in the media today. There are a lot of people. We got, for those down throughout history who may look back upon this for some strange reason, here's something to think about. There are millions of refugees right now in the world, millions of refugees. That doesn't even include all the people who are considered illegal aliens here in North America and around the world, because they're illegal aliens all over the world, not just in North America. We do not have a market on illegal alien issues. But there are a lot of poor people who are being persecuted in their own countries who are not currently at war, and they are looking to get out of it because they're being, they're suffering bad. And so, ultimately, religion is a key component in these issues. There's no way to get around it. Religion rules people's behavior in this world, right or wrong, good or bad. 90% of this world consider themselves to be religious. And not all religious beliefs, apparently, support taking care of the poor or helping people out who are in distress. And here in North America, we have two different groups that the media is all about. We got the Christian right, and we got the Christian left. Well, what does that mean? Christian right and Christian left. I've done some research on this. I've looked it up. I looked up on the internet. I Googled it. Political platform for Christian right, political platform for Christian left. When I put in to Google to look up the definition of Christian right, you know what webpage popped up? I'll tell you what webpage popped up. The Tea Party webpage popped up. I couldn't believe it. They got all these other programs out there that I've heard over the decades. A couple of decades ago, the moral majority was the big thing, and then there's this new, now it's slipping my mind. Crap. There's a bunch of them. Anyway, so I decided, well, since the Tea Party popped up on Christian right, let's see what they're about. I'd never looked at their webpage, so I thought, well, let's have a look. Well, this is what their cover sheet says. They've got, believe it or not, on their Facebook page there, says about us, which that would be a good place to find out about it. 15 non-negotiable core beliefs. Okay? Beliefs. Not political values, not government programs, not ideas, beliefs. That means they are convinced that they are right about these 15 things, and they're not going to negotiate or compromise at all, which that's a different topic. But first ones, and this is the kicker, this really got me, this is what I started chuckling on this one, it was funny. Illegal aliens are here illegally. Well, no kidding. Seriously? How many PhDs did it take to come up with that? Come on, guys. I'm just saying, if you're going to have a belief, be a little less obvious about the idiocy of a statement. Of course they're here illegally. That's why they're illegal aliens. Damn crickets. All right. Wisdom woman this is why she said this in Proverbs. She's like, I know these people are coming. I'm looking for them. Well, there's one. And yes, I do have some feelings around that one. Now, here's one that says, pro-domestic employment is indispensable. Well, yeah. If we didn't have pro-domestic employment, we wouldn't be able to buy groceries. Okay, so I support that. A strong military is essential. Now I got to tell you, over my entire life, because I grew up military. I'm a military brat. I served in the military, and I'm a disabled veteran, a member of the American Legion, I'm a life member of Disabled American Veterans, and so on and so forth. So a strong military. When I was younger, I was I debated on this. I did. But you know what? I came to the realization that as long as there are fanatical people in this world, wherever they're from, who believe that tyranny and oppression is the right way to live, we do need a strong military. Right or wrong, good or bad, that's life. So I support this one. The next one, special interests must be eliminated. Well, that includes the Tea Party. Are they going to eliminate themselves? I was wondering about that. And what do they call special interests? Okay, not sure. I have to do some more research on that one, but as far as I know, the Tea Party, because they're a Republican and they're a subsect of the Republican Party, that's a special interest group. So, far out. Okay, gun ownership is sacred. Wow. That's a big, I got guns. I grew up with guns. My dad was a weapons specialist, munitions specialist. I know about guns. They're not good or bad. They're not evil. What people do with them is good or bad or evil. But they are like a shovel as far as I'm concerned. But are they sacred? I don't think so. It sounds like that the Tea Party is making gun ownership equal to worshiping God. Seriously? You think God worships bows and arrows and guns? I don't think so. Let's get over that one. Boy, that's some extremism there. Government must be downsized. Well, there's no gray area on that one. They want to get rid of all social services programs. They've made that really clear for the last many years. And of course, I have issues with that. Because you know what? Social services programs and Christianity parallel each other. All right, deficit spending must end. I'm okay with that. Raising taxes on billionaires. Warren Buffett himself in 2011 said, hey, let's do this. We'll pay off the national debt in no time. Well, they don't want to do that. Bailout and stimulus plans are illegal. Well, that's for lawyers to decide. I'm not a lawyer. Reducing personal income taxes is a must. Well, okay. Reducing business income taxes is mandatory. Well, what's the difference between a must and a mandatory? Sounds the same to me. Why don't you just say mandatory twice? Let's see. Political offices must be, well, let's back up. If you reduce personal income taxes and you reduce business income taxes, where are you going to get the money to pay for things? Political offices must be available to average citizens. Well, shoot, guys, they already are. I know a bunch of teenagers, including here in Oklahoma, who have been elected mayors of their towns, and it's getting more and more popular. So if they're not average citizens, I don't know who is. Might want to catch up with the research yourselves a little bit, Katie. Okay, intrusive government must be stopped. Well, I'm okay with that. English as our core language is required. It already is. Traditional family values are encouraged. Well, traditional family values, what is that? Sounds like you want women in the house barefoot and pregnant. But you got a picture of Sarah Palin over here, so I can't imagine that. I don't know. That's vague. That's just downright vague. But that's what they write about. So that's where they stand. And of course the Christian left, when I looked up their platform, was the opposite of the Christian right. Well, where's the wisdom in all this? What is God's wisdom? We're getting bombarded daily by all these people telling us that they've got the right path, they've got the right road, and we need to get on board with their road. But is their road really the right road? Is their road really consistent with what the teachings of Jesus reflect? Well, we do have a way of finding that out. C.S. Lewis once said, we all want progress, but if you're on the wrong road, progress means doing an about turn and walking back to the right road. In that case, the man or woman who turns back soonest is the most progressive. Well, how about that? So progress, according to C.S. Lewis, is paying attention to wisdom woman. Because if you don't turn around and go back from the road that you have been on that has been causing more harm than good, you are definitely on the wrong road and you are not being progressive. It's all about perspective, isn't it? It's all about how much knowledge you have, how much you really understand. And trust me on this, I'm in Northeast Oklahoma, where knowledge is a scarce resource that most people don't pay much attention to out here, which of course explains why the Tea Party is so popular in Oklahoma. Because if they really understood what they're standing for, they might want to think twice about who they're following. So Wisdom Woman says, first and foremost, wisdom is a call to listen. Listening to what other people have to say. Having a willingness to listen is the first step. Wisdom says that being aware of the consequences of not listening are just as much important as being aware of the consequences of listening. If you don't listen, you're not going to learn. If you don't learn, you're going to repeat screwing up. You're going to make your life much harder than it needs to be, and the lives of everyone around you and around this world harder than it needs to be. The consequences of listening are that you are not going to make your life as hard as it needs to be. You're going to make it easier, better, for you and for everyone. How about that? Esau had a few things to say about this also. In our reading from the Gospel of Mark today, we can get in and talk about a bunch of stuff, the rebuking and all that, which he did. But basically, this passage really points out who Jesus really is, what he was really all about. We are talking about the man who cared so much about the welfare and the well-being of others that while he was dying on the cross, he was helping other people, including you and me. That's what he's all about, the suffering Jesus. And I'm sure there's a lot of artwork that's been done on this. There may have been a lot of papers and books and all that stuff written about this. But I'm telling you right now that from Wisdom Woman's perspective, what really stands out today in our reading is that Esau was a person who was willing to suffer for the people. And that's something that Indian religious people can relate to. Native Americans, First Nations, Alaska Natives, and we know what suffering for the people is about. Esau is that kind of a person. He was a militant for social justice. He was adamantly opposed to abuse of authority, oppression of others for personal gain, exploitation of others for personal gain. He wasn't interested in being a self-serving king. Now, I gotta say, based on what I'm seeing here on this Tea Party beliefs, kind of like Columbus beliefs, they seem to be more interested in self-serving than they are in being of good service. That's just my take on it. You do your own research and figure it out for yourselves. If there's any Tea Partiers listening to me, just think about how much you are listening today to Wisdom Woman. And you do have the opportunity to go back on your road. Take the other road. All right. And Esau wasn't a rich man. He wasn't after millions. And I got to tell you, I told this story earlier this week, and I'm going to share it with you because it bothers me a little bit. Now, I know a retired Baptist minister. I was raised Baptist. My grandpa was a Baptist preacher. There's a lot of Baptist churches in Indian country. And there are a lot of Baptists in Indian country churches. This is a retired Baptist minister. And every time that he and I would get together, all he wanted to talk about was how successful he had been in making money and saving. Here he was old, run down, a lot of health issues, and all he wanted to talk about was his great success in putting lots of money in the bank. And this guy's a millionaire. A millionaire Baptist preacher. What a concept. Now, I'm telling you right now that I am not opposed to wealthy people, because I know a lot of good wealthy people who didn't make their money off of exploiting others for personal gain. But this Baptist preacher was going on about how he had taken advantage of other people to make more money off of them than, should have. And that has always sat bothering me. And he's here in Tulsa. So, did Esau tell his disciples to go out and get rich off of the people? I don't think so. I've never read that in the gospel. He said, no, get out there and do good service work. Help people out. So God blesses you. Share your blessing. Wow. How about that? How many Porsches and Jaguars do you really need? Rolls Royces. I mean, just asking. So, there you go. This country, it was announced earlier this week that on the internet that by 2016 or 17, something like that, 1% of the wealthiest people in the world are going to own 90% of the wealth. 1% of the people in the world are going to have 90% of the resources of this planet. That's how bad can get. Yeah. So let me tell you, is that consistent with the teachings of Jesus about suffering for the people? No, it's not. And the question that you need to be asking yourself right here, right now, today is, the right road is a road which beckons us to embrace the wisdom of the suffering Jesus saw. Are you walking on that road? Walking good.